Kaleidoscope Youth Center is a nonprofit organization here in Columbus, Ohio, serving young people ages 12 through 20 who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, and their allies. I'm Amy Eldridge, and I'm the Executive Director at Kaleidoscope Youth Center. We have after-school programming, and we work with students in schools and staff in schools to provide supports. We've been around 21 years. We're here at the center today to have a conversation with our LGBT liaison and the liaison for the African American community, along with Andy Ginther, City Council President.
I am the African American liaison for the division. Primarily my role is the same as Nick's, where I work closely with the African American community regarding issues that we have, not only with the police department, but other ongoing issues that they have with other minority groups.
This last 6 months, I don't think when it first was created, I don't think the two of us realized how busy we would be. And really, from the education component and getting phone calls, going to meetings and visiting with the youth, and all these different events that we go to, just to say, hey, we're here. I think if they see us in uniform on their grounds and in their places where they're hanging out, it's easier for them to come to us.
And I see it as a really great opportunity, knowing how much distrust there often is in the community for that relationship development and for you to learn more, at Kaleidoscope.
What's the biggest issue you guys are seeing with the youth that are coming in and out of the center?
Many of our young people do face some safety issues, some street safety issues, and some issues with street harassment. Some of our young people are currently housing insecure and experiencing homelessness, and so there are a lot of concerns around that, and I think a lot of ways that we can build some better relationships with Columbus Police Department on kind of supporting those young people.
That's one of my biggest concerns, is that if they are being harassed or something is going on with them, that they don't feel like they have someone to turn to. Like, that's my biggest concern, is that they're not going to know to turn to the police. I think maybe the homeless youth would interact with the police more often. A lot of the people that we service are from lower income, and the ways that they unfortunately see, the majority of the ways they interact with police are them coming into their communities and usually to arrest somebody. They don't get to see the more positive interactions. That's predominantly what it is. And they're self-selecting out of the positive interactions because they're not turning to them when they are in trouble.
Sergeant, you finding the same things in the African American community with the work and liaison efforts of your?
Generally speaking, a lot of them have a general mistrust of the police department just because they've seen their uncles or their fathers or their older brothers and sisters be either arrested by the police or have negative interactions, to the point where when they're younger, the only thing that they think in the perception of all police officers are that we're all bad or all out to get them, specifically in the black community, because most of where some of them live is just predominantly African Americans in that neighborhood, so they don't see any other interaction with any other background, so they just believe that they are a target group, and it's hard for them to understand a lot of times that we're not out to get everyone, and there's a specific reason as to why the particular individual, if it's their family member, why they're being stopped or why they're being questioned or arrested. So I'm trying to educate them every day on what we do and why we do things, and just getting them to understand that it's not just a white cop against the black community thing. It's just police officers doing their job and doing it to the best of their abilities based on their training and their education and everything around them. So absolutely.
We see it 100 times at a festival in one day. You see a parent grab their kid and go, I'm going to tell them to get you. I'm going to tell them to get you. And so from that young age, we don't like seeing these parents, and I know the parents don't mean it, it's funny to them, but it really isn't good for the child, because you're raising your child to be afraid of police. They are being conditioned to look at us as all we do is take them away. That's all we're going to do is take them away, and that's not it. And I always do my best to tell a parent, hey, please don't tell them that, and I'll tell the child, I'm not going to take you away. We take bad people away, that's it.
What are some of the unique perspectives of LGBT youth who are also young people of color with some of their perspectives and experiences, sometimes trying to bridge that gap between both identities and maybe lack of acceptance in one community and those perspectives towards law enforcement. What shed some light and give some perspective on that?
They are often coming to us with multiple identities, layered identities. And it's difficult, even as an adult, to navigate those identities in any particular situation, and it's even more so difficult for our young people. It's not just race as well as sexual identity, or class, maybe mental health, physical disabilities. All these different things are coming together and are layered, and so they're having to navigate not just one thing or one thing here. They have to put those things together and have a very unique perspective on how to navigate those things. And sometimes you do have to make decisions. Those with multiple and layered identities often have to make a decision of which identity is going to be primary in this situation, which identity is going to benefit me more in this situation, which identity is going to put me in more of a conflict in this situation. So which one do I want to align myself more with?
I think it's really encouraging to hear that you two work together so often, because that's an important thing, to have that understanding of intersectionality, intersectional identities, because when we compartmentalize youth into, well, these are all LGBT youth, so that's all that they are, then there are services and there are needs that just aren't being met.
We often see that our youth, their threshold for disrespect gets lowered. So I have heard that, like, when an officer is maybe being directive or authoritarian or just like even sometimes asking, it is interpreted as negative quicker than it would be from somebody that doesn't have to fight for respect so hard. As
law enforcement professionals, you had to seek out this opportunity and this role. What made you decide to take on this type of challenge? What have been some of the biggest surprises thus far in the role?
I saw a lot of things within my community and with the police department growing up as a youth in the 90s, and there were a lot of things that I saw that I didn't necessarily understand why the police did what they did, and I was one of those kids that had a lot of anger and resentment against law enforcement because I didn't come from a law enforcement family, so I didn't really understand the culture. And as I had continued to get older and then educated myself, and then once I became an officer, I understood the value and the importance of how hard those officers were working out there and understanding why they did what they did, which was a positive thing, but at the time I didn't understand it. So for me to come back and work the same neighborhood that I grew up in was very important, first and foremost. So then when I was given this opportunity to accept this role, it was just another one of those things that I could add to the layer of helping people in the same community that I came from. Because if they can't accept it from me, who else are they going to accept it from? I've been in the same exact streets they've been in. I've been in the same exact stressful situations, coming from a single parent household, not knowing when my next meal was going to be at times. So I understand the stress that majority of the area that I serve, deals with. So I just felt like it was almost like a calling for me. So I didn't want to turn the opportunity down.
My favorite things about being a police officer is getting to go to the community meetings and interact with people, and I enjoyed that and saw the benefit that people got out of it, just to have a time with an officer one-on-one. Because usually, we're just responding to a call, or we're driving down the street, or they see us in passing and they say hello, or at a festival, we might stop and take a picture with them, but they don't really have that time to stop and say, can I talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes about some questions I have, or can you give me some advice? And so I enjoyed that the most. So when I was asked to, take this position, I couldn't turn it down. So from your guys' standpoint, to help youth, what's the one thing, the one gap that you see between youth and the police department right now that is most important to you guys?
I think it's really important to examine trust from two sides. Especially our young people can understand more about the police officers, but I just wonder sometimes how sheltered the police officers may be from information about what the experience of the young people is, the youth's experience that makes them distrustful.
Unfortunately, our young people are still experiencing incidences of violence, verbal violence, and can lead very stressful lives. And just keeping that in mind, as Amy was saying about their experiences and understanding what their experiences might be, and what it might be for a young person to be living in a situation where they are being verbally assaulted in their home or in their faith community or in their school, and they're having that assault on a daily basis, and how that young person is going to function in our society, and just having that understanding of what that does to any person, most importantly a young person. And that goes into the cultural competency, and having that understanding that some of our young people are still experiencing that on a daily basis. There are many young people, and we have wonderful parents who are really supporting their young people and are really that pillar of support that they need. But there still exist those young people that don't have those really key supports that allow them to have a certain level of resiliency and confidence and trust and authority that we would want young people to have in their teenage years.
And I think part of it is also going to come down to open and ongoing dialogue. So about kind of immediate things going on in our communities here, and also kind of engaging in the broader national conversations around some of these issues too. And being, we talked about, if you're only seeing police officers in certain contexts, then you're going to have a preconceived notion about what police officers are here for, right? And also being willing to sit down with young people, field some questions, and have open and honest dialogue about their concerns and their fears and questions that they might have.
We're seeing the bullying thing, so much, and it's not just LGBTQ youth or African American youth, it's everyone. I mean, that monster is attacking everybody in every school across the nation, and it is just so sad, to see what these kids are going through, and it's an uphill battle with the bullying thing of, how do you deal with it, what do you do? And then especially when they can't go home to a parent that is supportive, and then they continue to endure the stress. It makes me wonder, how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you make it through that period in your life? All we can tell them to do is, hey, stick through it. I promise you, at the end, there's light at the end of the tunnel. It gets better. When you get a little older, nobody cares. Nobody cares what walk of life you're from. When you get to college, nobody cares. There's people just like you.
One of the reasons Kaleidoscope exists is because a lot of young people can't afford to wait until it gets better.
Right, you're right.
So
You're exactly
it's
right.
about, we've got to make it better now. And, all adults sitting around here as part of the community, it's really our role to figure out how to make it better now for our young people.
Down the road in 10 years, they will look back on this time in their life and say, Kaleidoscope got me through that tough time. So, there's no doubt in my mind.
I actually was a youth here when I was 16 and 17.
Really? How cool is that?
Yeah, and then I was a volunteer like 2 or 3 years ago. We got involved because I went to a really rural high school, and we were trying to start a gay-straight alliance. This was about 10 years ago. So let alone that we were rural, and I came from a conservative place. That was, it was also 10 years ago. So, and I reached out to the director at the time, and she really empowered our voices and let us know that we weren't alone and that we weren't just somebody to be trampled over. And they really supported it. We did have meetings again. So, and I think that's why I got so interested in social activism, and then later mental health. It is.
Well, good for you. That is awesome. It's good to hear that.
These officers being single point of contact for different constituency groups, you all giving folks that you interact with a better sense of what policing is all about, why law enforcement makes some of the decisions, why the policies and procedures. Have you been given any sense from the chief or others how your perspectives and experiences can help build capacity for dealing with different constituencies amongst the division overall, with respect to either training and professional development opportunities for officers and members of the division across the board?
Yeah, one of the good things that the chief has done, she implemented a training class in light of all the situations that are going on nationwide with the African American community and law enforcement, where basically everyone was required to attend this training in the division in terms of different ways that we can police better and different tactics that we can learn to prevent something like a Ferguson happening here in Columbus or Baltimore. So it was a mandatory training for all division personnel that was pretty well received. So that was one of the things that she's done. Is there any other things you can think of?
She's gotten us more involved in the cultural diversity class with our recruits, getting them right when they're fresh in the academy, and bringing our perspectives in. I spoke to the last recruit class about what they're going to see out on the street dealing with the LGBTQ community. Something that's very interesting is we've had officers come to us with, they're human too, and they have families and they experience some of these issues too. Hey, I need some advice. I've got this in my own family. Can you help me through this issue? And so it's been great.
I've actually fielded more calls from other ethnic backgrounds regarding things going on within the community. So not only am I only dealing with the African American community, I've had multiple occasions where I've dealt with other backgrounds because they didn't know where else to turn, didn't know who else that they could trust with an issue that they're having in their neighborhood or with a neighbor or at a school. So we are not exclusive to the communities that we're serving specifically. I mean, we're an open book. So if there's any other segment of society that feels they have no one else that they can turn to or trust in terms of the police, I mean, we field all different types of calls and questions, and I have absolutely no problem handling those as well. So
The two of you have, is part of your role if someone feels, for example, like they were mistreated based on their gender expression by a police officer. Is that something that we would bring to you to help with some resolution?
You can. What we're going to do, any type of misconduct allegation has to go through our Internal Affairs Bureau. We have a very expansive Internal Affairs Bureau that is so thorough with these investigations, and these investigations they put so much time and effort in these investigations. So we would just refer you to Internal Affairs if you feel that an officer has mistreated someone from the community. That's essentially what we would do, is send it over to Internal Affairs for we would want that investigated, because if we have an officer out here that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, it needs to be investigated.
So if somebody did that, though, how do they, could they continue to rely on you or other folks they built relationships with guidance along the way?
Oh,
Is
absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
that just a one and done situation where you
Nope.
go report it, or they could use you as a navigator or somebody they could consult with?
Yeah, we can
as they
navigate
go
them through the
them?
process, and
Okay.
we would want to do that for them,
Okay.
to help them through the process, because we want them to see it's not bad. We're not bad people. We are here for you, and that's what we want the community. If they're not comfortable coming to us, why are we here? We have to have a community that is comfortable coming to the police and reporting crimes and dealing with it. They've got to trust us to be able to do our jobs. So that's very important. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you
It's
for
been
having
great.
us. Thanks for taking on these new roles. Very important.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For young LGBTQ youth or the adults that are interested in supporting them, if you want more information about Kaleidoscope Youth Center, find us online at www.kycohio.org or give us a call at 614-294-5437.